the beginning of the end for you.
To the sky!
Bestowed upon you the power of the sun.
A mighty sword!
Strike while the iron's hot.
For Camelot! For Avalon!
Let the heavens rain! I am Ragnarok!
Happy Sunday, SMITE fans, and welcome back to another day of the SMITE Pro League, powered by our friends at Prime Gaming. If you haven't already, make sure that you use that Prime Gaming sub to pick up some of the great games. If there was anything in that ad that you saw just a moment ago that really caught your interest, well, you can pick that up with Prime Gaming subs out there, or with your Prime Gaming subscription, I should say, out there. So if you want to grab any of those games, also you get a free monthly sub that you can use just about anywhere, including right here on this channel to get some of the cool emotes that we have in our channel. All that and more can be yours if you make sure that you are subscribed to Prime Gaming. And if you aren't already a Prime Gamer, make sure that you pick up, because in addition to all of that, you get tons of games, you get cool free delivery on other things out there via Prime and whatnot. So make sure that you are a Prime Gaming sub, a Prime Gaming member out there. And thank you to Prime Gaming for being one of our sponsors here in Season 9 of the SPL. My name is J-Mac. I got Trelly joining me on the desk today. We got our triple header Sunday ahead of you guys, which means we got 3 awesome sets of games for you. And Trelly, going into today, if you were thinking, a week ago,
right,
you're looking at this first set going, Kings and Valks. Okay, we're going to see a 2-0 for the Kings. It's going to be all she said, all that's done, all she wrote right here. But after a performance out of the Valkyries yesterday, I think our first set might even be a really nice one.
Yeah, at this point, I don't know whether to say the Leviathans looked off or the Valks just looked that good. And to be honest, the Valks did look that good. I mean, not only were the Valks able to take on the Leviathans, BennyQ played Anubis. I mean, if you missed that set yesterday, you were in for a treat, because it wasn't a troll pick. It worked out pretty darn well, but here we are.
Yeah, it was a very nice game out of the Valkyries yesterday, a 2-1 win over the Leviathans. But for today, we're going to start things off with the Kings and the Valkyries, then we'll have the Leviathans and Dragons, and then to close out our week, in the final week of Phase 1 of the SPL, it'll be the Titans and the Warriors in that third and final matchup today. And with that win out of the Valkyries yesterday, we got to see a little bit of a shakeup in the standings as well, as we get to take a nice little look at that and see where everybody is as we go into kind of the final day of play here. There's a lot up for grabs here. Remember, top 4 from Phase 1 will go into a seeding tournament. From that one, the positions that the teams end up rounding out from that seeding tournament then also affect their standings going into Masters, and will also affect their seeding and their standings as they go in towards Phase 2 of the SPL. So taking a look here, the Titans and the Dragons, both those teams playing today, and both of them currently tied at that second seed. And what a wild top 4 that we have here, Trelly. Bolts on top of the world right now, Titans, Dragons, and then Warriors in the top 4. And we're looking at Leviathans and Kings, who were 2 of the top teams last year, sitting at 5th and 6th.
I didn't even realize that the Valks getting that win yesterday put them over the Scarab, so no longer sitting at the bottom there. This might be the rise of the Valhalla Valkyries, and I'm excited to see it. I mean, these different styles of picks, we knew coming into the league that was going to be a possibility, especially out of that mid lane with BennyQ. But right now, man, the Valks are looking good, so we should have an interesting set here for us.
Yeah, I mean, with a win yesterday for the Valkyries here, I mean, it's definitely a massive morale, but you can see it on all the Twitter posts that were coming from the guys there. They're like, man, it just feels so good finally getting a win. The Valkyries as a franchise getting a win, and just in general for the first time in 20-some-odd sets out here has always got to feel good, especially when you're the new kids on the block and going up against the former reigning world champions. It's a massive morale boost for these guys. Is it enough to find them a full win and continue that streak out there? Well, maybe so.
I mean, we'll have to see. I think the desk was right to highlight yesterday the fact that BennyQ has always been looking good. He's always had his pop-off games where he's able to find a set, but the duo lane, Gamma and Wowie specifically, were sort of slow to start. They weren't quite able to get that sort of synergy that we've known them to have in the SEC, things like that. But this set specifically, they were on fire. I mean, like I said, BennyQ has always been having these good games, but Gamma and Wowie looked very solid. They were finally coming into fruition here in the league, and their plays, I mean, they were just looking on fire.
Yeah, I think dual lane is definitely the spot to highlight here, especially just because Wowie has been having a lot of struggles so far this season, but he finally got to step up. And I think, and I don't like to put it onto a single pick here, but this Charybdis being back and available here for the Valkyries to play, and this being a pick that Wowie really loved, not during just the SCC, but also during the SPL qualifiers and, what allowed them to even get here. That Charybdis pick really was one that he liked to go back towards, and he looked really good on it. Then he finally gets to play it again yesterday. And we get to see just what happens when Wowie can finally get a comfort pick and when this dual lane can start popping off.
I'm speechless. I've seen that play 4 or 5 times at
It's
this
so
point,
good.
but that triple kill with Raw, Benny Q's disgusting. We're gonna have to see how he's able to pop off this set. You know, obviously he's gonna have some eclectic picks. I'm excited to see what they bring, but you know, the Camelot Kings, they're not gonna let you just be a strange pick run them over. You know, you're gonna have to play the map very well, which the Valks have shown they're able to do. I don't remember who it was, maybe the Warriors that were able to say it, but that first game that the Valks were able to play, they played some very clean Smite. They know how to farm this map, and that's really where the Kings benefit themselves. They like to be able to farm this map as well. Their macro farm very solid. The obelisk control is also very good for them, so the Valks are gonna have to step up their game. I mean, the Camelot Kings were on top of the seedings a little bit ago for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, Camelot Kings, they've fallen a little bit. You know, last week wasn't the best week out here for the Kings, so they definitely want to try and fight back here to find a victory up against the newly revitalized Valkyries team out here. And they've got all the tools to do so here. I mean, variety in that solo lane. You get him on a bully-style god, something that can really run that solo lane, something that once they get in towards that late game, he is a player that can, for sure, absolutely just dominate the map here. And he's got a great team to follow up behind it. Genetics can go for these more facilitator-style picks. He can go for things like the Khepri. We've even seen him go so far down into his god pool. I remember vividly one game where Genetics ended up having to go like 7 gods deep through, and he still found a good pick, and he still looked good on it. And that's something about this whole team here is that their god pool is so vast that you can only ban so many things. It just comes down to what do you not want to play against the Kings.
I mean, yeah, what I would say the Neath comes to mind pretty much immediately. BMT's Neath has been banned away so many times. He's such a powerful mid laner, not just right now, pretty much has always been on top of these mid lane standings. Even when the team wasn't here in studio, he was still performing very well on ping, so BMT always going to be a threat. A nice, I'm not going to say thorn in the side of Benny Q, but he's not just going to be rolled over by these eclectic picks that Benny Q is able to go for, so they're going to have to be playing to the top of their strength here, but I don't think it's going to be a problem. As you mentioned, when we asked these teams beforehand in the interviews, you know, who's the scariest player on the Kings, a lot of names get thrown around, but usually at the top of that is Genetics, which is odd because the support is not usually that player that you want to pick out. You don't want to think about how strong Genetics' brain is, but that is what gets brought up a lot, the fact that he knows how to play the map and he knows how to tell this team what to do and where to do it.
Yeah, I mean, the mental battle, the strategy that comes behind a lot of these, while they're not always the support, you do have to give credit to some of the coaches who bring out some of these sometimes wilder strategies, but they end up paying off. I mean, I think back to, what was it, the Warriors in the Scarab set going into the World's qualifiers, that final best of 5 when we saw a draft of the Scares made where it goes, wow, this comp isn't going to do anything for like, what, 30-plus minutes? And it ended up being, you know, we talked to Slaney after, he's just like, no, this is just what the Warriors do. They're not going to play to fight us early, so we're just going to make that kind of comp. So you never know what goes on behind the minds here of the players and the coaches. And we got to talk a little bit to Genetics here. So we'll take it to a quick video so you can see what he had to say.
So as the season's progressed so far, we need to try and improve a little bit on consistency around the map. I think I said that before, but just drafting correctly and making sure we've got our game plan for the most part is how we're going to get better. We had a bit of a falter last week. Hopefully we can recover and get a win towards the end and then see how we phase for playoffs. I don't think we can make top 4 anymore. I'm not sure. That depends on the seeding and depends on matching. Well, I hope we win against the Valkyries. They've not done too well so far. I think the name may be cursed. But yeah, they've got a pretty good team and they're pretty sporadic, so it might be interesting. The biggest threat on Valkyries is probably Benny Q, just because he's a bit quirky. But I'm not really sure how to deal with him because he just does a bunch of random stuff, so we'll just deal with him when it comes to game day.
Yeah, I think that phrase right at the end might be the most accurate thing for Benny Q and his God Bowl. He's a bit quirky out here, and when you look at what he's been picking throughout the entirety of the season, even throughout his time over at the SCC, it does seem to fit. I mean, the Anubis pick yesterday, I even saw so many things, some posts out there going, wow, this Anubis pick might seem troll on the surface, but it actually is really smart.
Right.
When you look at what he's going up against a Shiva, a god who's got 2 knockup / pulls within his kit, Anubis is not going to have to worry about that with his first ability out here. Benny Q, even though some of his picks are a little bit stranger, he really does know how to kind of break down the mindset as to why they are valuable picks and is able to win with them. Just not only talk the talk, but also be able to walk the walk.
Yeah, he's not picking Anubis mid for any sort of meme-age. It's because, number one, you can sort of just melt Cthulhu's health bar, which is what he did in that game, and the knockup immunity for the Shiva jungle. He's not picking these things just because, oh, I want to play Anubis. He understands the matchups and the ins and outs of how a mid laner wants to face a jungler, that sort of thing. So we're going to have to see if that will come into play here when they do think about their strategy and picks and bans. I'm curious to see how they've been really, racking their brains about this one.
Yeah, I think the drafting for both of these teams has been some of the most interesting parts. Sure, the play on field is always great, but I always love seeing these drafts from these teams out here. So we'll jump right into the drafting for the picks and bans of game number 1 between the Valhalla Valkyries and the Camelot Kings. And the first thing the Valks are going to take away is going to be that Yemoja. Maybe kind of an interesting one out here. There are some teams that don't really seem to care about Yemoja at all. There are other teams that prioritize making sure to pick or ban Yemoja. I think of the Scarabs. Whenever their first pick, they're almost always taking that god out here. When teams are going against the Scarabs, they're kind of just letting them have it sometimes, maybe thinking back to the old inbound curse with that one. But over here with the Valkyries, putting a lot of respect on Genetics' name specifically, not just that Yemoja, but also a Khepri ban.
I want to see 3 Genetics bans here. Show me one more Guardian. Show me the Bacchus. I don't know. Something that just you don't want Genetics able to run this duo lane, because we've already talked a little bit about the fact that the Valkyries duo lane was not able to really get up and running just yet. Yesterday, though, which I believe Genetics' interview was before, so he hasn't gotten to see this new revitalized Valkyries, at least for that interview specifically. Trying to get this duo lane online might not be an issue for them, but they do want to make sure, number 1, Yemoja, Khepri, and now Medusa are taken away. So I think finding some duo pressure for the Valks, probably something that they're focusing on here. The Kings will answer back with pretty much just top meta bans. Daji, Artio, Kleena, nothing really just, jumping out at me there that says this is a Valk-specific ban. This is just, these are strong picks right now that you don't want to give up if you're not in that first pick position. Now, though, the Valks have their choice. What are they going to go for here? They have a few different options. That Shiva, they've been highly prioritizing to get Kirmi on a nice jungle that he feels comfortable on, and he has been liking that Shiva a lot. We'll have to see if they put some stock into it.
I wouldn't be surprised if Gilgamesh was even a first pick here. It's something that Captain Twig likes, and it's something that Kirmi had a lot of success on yesterday. It will be Gilgamesh as a first lock-in here by the Valkyries. I think maybe interesting to see that Medusa is getting a ban here. Over the course of our weekend so far with this new 9.4 patch that came out, Medusa seems to have fallen out of favor for a lot of the hunters, and even some of her build pathing has kind of changed up. The Crusher doesn't seem to be the item to go to anymore for a lot of these hunters out here, so it seems that she in general has kind of taken a little bit of a hit there. So seeing that ban, maybe just kind of to hold it to allow for something like this Gilgamesh. But it will be Bellona and Shiva on the opposite side here. So the King's going to take a page out of Kirmi's book and pick up this Shiva for the jungle.
Yeah, but since they picked that Bellona, that does mean Cthulhu is available. I'm surprised. I mean, I like Variety's Bellona, and honestly, he's very disruptive in the backline with that pick specifically. But the Morgan gets locked in. I would be shocked if Cthulhu is not the pick here. I'm sure they have options, but yeah, they had to go for that there. That seems to be the best 2 options, given the fact that Bellona was already taken, Shiva's going to be taken away, and at this point, it's just the best matchup that was available. I feel not necessarily the Morgan, but the Cthulhu just so powerful right now, and you already know your solo matchup. The Kings would certainly ban that away if it not grabbed in that slot.
One more pick here for the Kings before the second wave of bans. They've got their jungle solo. Could still be a support Shiva. I can't discount that. We have seen Wrong You play that one over in the support role before. Wouldn't put it behind Genetics to maybe grab a pick like that out here. So 2 out of the 3 frontliners for the Kings at the very least have been drafted out here. The Valkyries will then need their duo lane, so we'll see some of those extra bans out of the Kings probably make their way that direction. We've already seen 2 bans against Genetics here with the Yemoja Khepri. And I remember having an interview with Genetics at one point after a game where he had 6-7 gods banned up against him, and I said, man, how does it feel just like having that much priority put against you specifically? And he said to me, it's kind of tilting. I'm already playing on ping, and now they're banning all my gods. Like, this is just rude more than anything out here. Obviously, that was back, when all the Kings weren't quite back over here just yet playing on LAN altogether. Now that they are here, maybe it doesn't matter quite as much to them. An ESET lock-in means that we could be looking at Genetics' support pick here, though we did see quite a bit of ESET mid yesterday coming out of the Bolts.
I mean, with Captain Twig on the table also, there's a few jungle picks that he could go even in this roster. Not to say that the ESET hasn't more specifically gone to Genetics right now, but I think there's always going to be a few options. BMT as well. A very solid player. He could obviously pilot that ESET, but he's been more so leaning towards those hunters in the mid lane. That Neath, to be honest, is still available, and that could be very annoying. But with Benny Q on the Morgan, I don't think you really want to give the World Weaver over to them as well. That transformation could always be pretty solid. Usually, though, the Cthulhu is going to be the option, but just having that extra level of global presence in that ultimate, probably not wanting to give that one away. We'll have to see if the Valks even put some stock in banning it away. But Charybdis will be the ban for the Camelot Kings, trying to get Wowie on something that he's not comfortable on. Already, though, we're going to see a lot of these Hunter bans. Chiron specifically, though, that's got to be more geared towards mid.
Yeah, and I kind of want to bring up this Charybdis for a moment. I talked about it at the beginning. We kind of talked about it during the set yesterday, but that seems to be Wowie's go-to comfort pick out here. So the Kings with a very smart ban on that one, because so far outside of the Critters, we haven't seen Wowie find a real comfort pick just yet. He's found picks that have allowed him to just kind of stay in the lane, get his farm, kind of just exist over there, but nothing that's really allowed him to pop off like this Charybdis has. So a smart ban out of the Kings alongside a Cabraca in there. So still some of that solo/jungle presence that can be taken away from here on the side of the Valkyries. Meanwhile, they'll take away the Chiron and the Persephone, so a couple of shots at the mid-Hunter combo there as a potential there. Even could just be 2 mid bans. We've seen a lot of Chiron mid as of late. But now with the Heimdall locked in, the Kings will now be looking towards either their support or their mid, or who even knows at this point, wherever the rest of their picks go out here. But Heimdall, at least into the dual lane, gives the Kings a lot of safety there. Yeah,
I'm surprised the Heimdall didn't get banned away just because of the fact that the Morgan has this stealth that she loves to use so much, and with the vision that Heimdall provides, it's going to be pretty annoying to deal with. Persephone is going to be also pretty annoying to deal with, though, so I think they were kind of up in arms about that one. Which one should they take away? Maybe the vision not going to hurt them too much. Benny Q, again, been around the block a few times. I think he knows how to pilot this Morgan, even with that vision on the map. So I think as long as that Heimdall is calling that out specifically, though, there's going to be some form of outplay, at least in that regard. But we'll have to see. They've saved their duo lane for last, it would seem, which is odd because, again, they put so much stock into banning away these duo lane gods, but it looks like they just wanted to take these picks away from the Kings. They don't really care what they're going to be playing, at least just yet. Gamma and Wowie, though, still hovering over here. They have a few minutes of bank time to really consider what they want to do about this draft thus far. And looking into Shiva, probably not. I mean, Wowie does like this Cupid pick, but into Shiva and Bologna, I feel like there's not much you can really do. Cupid not going to find much success into that matchup specifically, so I can't imagine that's what they go to. No, Cupid maybe not so. I mean, there's still quite a few hunters out there. Jing Wei has been making a rise in popularity, so that could always be an option. Nox, I still don't like the fact that I have to say that at this point, you know, because it's Nox, the meme around it, obviously, but a lot of utility with this god. I mean, the ability to lock down a single person so consistently, as long as you're able to hit that 1-2 combo, or even as long as you're able to just hit that shadow lock out there, can be really detrimental to some of these gods on the King's draft. But it will be Nox and Jing Wei to round out the Valkyries comp and round out the dual lane for their team. Yeah, we'll have to see. Last pick available here. It could be that Guardian that Genetics wants, or again, there could be that E-set that's the Guardian. There could be a mid lane that BMT wants. We'll have to see. This draft still could shape into a few different things depending on what this last pick is. I'm sure that they're just hovering over this one while they're discussing it, but I mean, to me, this draft looks like Captain Twig on the Shiva, Variety obviously on his signature Bologna pick, Genetics on the E-set support, and then Heimdall on the ADC, but I think they're still discussing over who they want to flex this E-set to, probably just trying to figure out, you know, you're against Nox right now in the duo lane, if that is where you're taking it. Nox is going to shut down a large portion of what E-set wants to do. That Wing Gust getting silenced out can be very annoying. The fact that you have a Jing Wei means you're not going to get that much pressure, and it looks like there will be the pivot made where Geb shuts down Nox pretty hard, at least in that lane specifically. The Stone Shield really makes that matchup not the best. So yeah, with that Geb locked in now, E-set pushing over and towards the mid lane for BMT on the side of the Kings here. And this Nox versus Geb, it's something that we were seeing a lot when the Bolt specifically were playing this Nox, because they're one of the few teams that are playing this god as consistently as they're allowed to, I should say. Not that they're able to get it every game. It's been highly banned away against these guys. But when they are grabbing this Nox, one of the first things that they're doing is they're making sure that they're not grabbing it in the first 2. They're always getting it at least into the top 3 if they can in that 3rd pick slot. And then they're always banning Geb right behind it, just because, like you said, Geb being that kind of hard counter matchup against Nox, because if you're not targeting the Geb just shuts down everything that you want to do. Yeah, but I will say, because of how much that matchup is played where Geb is the counter matchup, I think these Nox players have found a way around it where just go for the Geb. I mean, just pick the Geb first. As long as he's silenced, he can't really do anything. You sort of force this Geb into getting a Beads first relic, and then you can't get a support relic for your team. You can't get a blink for these Cataclysm engages, at least until level 12. So as long as you're consistently hitting these Shadow Locks and these silences onto the Geb, it kind of shuts down that lane. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword in that regard, where you don't really know who's going to win that lane as long as these Nox combos are hitting it. Now, on the other side, if the Nox combos aren't hitting, Geb just gets free value. Yeah, I mean, and Geb with all the buffs that he had gotten in recent times, you know, the Cataclysm being able to just use actual base damage, even still with some of the extra nerfs that have come the way of his Stone Shield, still a very valuable pick over here for the Camelot Kings. With the Valkyries in the draft they've got so far, I mean, I'm looking at this top 3, even kind of discounting what the Nox and Jing Wei can do in this duo lane.
this is a strong top 3 out of the Valkyries. It's something that Kiermi yesterday had success on with the Gilgamesh. BennyQ was getting the Morgan ban, but now you have Morgan and Cthulhu. I mean, this is a combo we've been talking about since Season 8, Trelly.
Yeah, are you a Cthulhu 2 or Cthulhu? Which one?
I'm a Cthulhu 2.
You're a Cthulhu 2? Okay.
And I believe Mifflin was the Cthulhu, was his role in there.
Okay.
That was the third one that we had there.
I'm not going to hate on any of the names, but looking at the Kings draft, I think that BMT has a very solid pick here to just survive in this mid lane, dealing with 2 Cthulhus. It's sort of hard to live that, but Circle of Protection at your feet, you should be able to sustain and get it. You get the shield as well from your silence. So there's a few different avenues there to try and survive this double dive until late game, where Iset can sort of just one-shot everyone, right? I mean, that sort of is the build path that we've been seeing. Venenu is like this pick a lot, and he's been going for these early style like Void Stone builds, which is going to help out against the double magical dive that you're going with here with double Cthulhu and the Morgan.
Yeah, I mean, this Iset Circle of Protection, it's talked about, for its objective secure. We'll see if the Camelot Kings can utilize that to continue that macro play for themselves, or can the Valkyries start up another upset train here in game number 1 up against the Camelot Kings and the Valhalla Valkyries? Who's going to take it? Let's go right to Dulcin and Mifflin.
It's Sunday and our first of 3 sets that we've got here in the SPL. The Valhalla Valkyries fresh off their first set win of the year over the Atlantis Leviathans. Now they match up against the Camelot Kings. Dulcin, Mifflin, and Doug will be with you for what, Miff, you would think would be a 2-0 for the Camelot Kings. But after yesterday, and after the way the Kings have maybe struggled as of late, the set gets a lot more intriguing.
That said, I mean, like, I still got Kings against the field, Dave. Like, I'm a diehard fan.
Right, you gotta establish a trend, right? Like,
Yeah.
one win does not a trend make. Now you got to do it consistently.
Oh, you're talking about the Valks or the
Valks.
Kings double loss?
I'm more the Valks. I'm a little more worried about the Kings and how they've lost a couple back-to-back. But I think they have a good shot at getting things back on track today.
Gotta hope. I think the Kings fans certainly hoping that they're able to rectify or right that ship, if you would. And I think the Kings have got a pretty good composition for their style of play. When we talk about the Kings, it's how many obelisks are you controlling? How are your ganks in the soul lane? Looking pretty good so far. Aquarius forced into his own tower, but should be just safe enough and should be able to survive the rest of this laning phase. How good are your Scorpions? How good are your invades? And how well are the other team's capacity to slow down some of that macro farm? I'd argue Benny on the Morgan doesn't really have the best ability to fight in that mid 3v3, at least until around level 7 or 8. So the Camelot Kings could likely just pull a lead by their signature style.
Well, Kiermi dodges out the Spirit Ball. Could have been first blood. Captain Twig has a lot of early damage here. Kiermi left running, pulled back in by Twig. Got to be first blood, and it is. Camelot Kings collapse in onto Kiermi. That is simple. That is a pure out-of-position Gilgamesh, and the Kings and Captain Twig will strike first.
Yeah, even if Kiermi connects the leap, like, it's not so much damage, it's not that large a buff that you're really feeling all that confident in your ability to take the 1v1 up against Twig. We saw Twig jukes out the jump and says, hey man, you don't have an escape anymore. You can't get out of here. It's an easy fight for the Shiva, and well, now a Shiva with a level lead is something you don't want to contend with on the map. The Camelot Kings strike first blood, and well, Captain Twig, he could do about no wrong, at least for the next 4 or 5 levels. Eventually Shiva starts to fall off.
Right, yeah, Twig with Blink early on this pick as well. A little extra gold in the back pocket. Strong look for the Camelot Kings, who have been able to play around many roles this year. Feels like the Big Man Tings has been strong and consistent. We've seen the duo lane have great games. Variety's had great games individually as well. So I think the Camelot Kings have some diversity in which roles can really step up and find them some pressure here in these games. Variety considering a blue buff invade, but now dashed at by Aquarius. Kiermi close by as well. The drop kick connects, but Captain Twig, he'll blink in. The up down this time from Kiermi gets Variety solo, but now Captain Twig with one dash knocks down Aquarius. Another early kill on this Shiva. And Variety and Big Man Tings will collapse in. Blink use, Circle of Protection detonates, and Miff, we are in troublesome waters already. For the Valhalla Valkyries, you have dropped 3 kills in 3 minutes, 1,300 gold behind.
And look, Variety walks in on his own there, right? That was like 10 seconds where Kiermi and Aquarius are allowed to fight him in a 2 versus 1. I was already gearing up. I was about to put Variety on blast. Why are you going in on your own when you know Captain Twig's nearby? All you have to do is slow him down. somehow survives that Death Toll Scourge combo just so good. The pathing, weaving in and out of auto range, making sure that Kirmi wasn't allowed to apply that Sun Scimitar. Very nice, and eventually once Captain Twig gets there, that fight turns around completely. That is a major loss for the Valhalla Valkyries early on. Not only is Captain Twig even further ahead now, but now Variety, who is already the lane bully in this matchup, will likely be allowed to do that exact same play again, but without the help of Captain Twig. Now that that ultimate is available, the Eagles rally Variety very safe in this lane, and blue buffs generally have been accosted when Cthulhu's the one defending them. And Cthulhu is defending them from behind.
Yeah, I don't know. Kirmi early in this game has felt a bit out of sorts, but definitely not out of things yet. You still want to impact this game if you're Gilgamesh early on. Level 4 though takes over level 5. Winds of Shamash is there, but a level behind Captain Twig. Luckily for the Valkyrie, I was literally about to say at least the duo lane has at least the duo lane has been okay. but level 5 reached by Genetics and Netrioid, and they will collapse in onto Gamma.
Good God.
And now it feels like nowhere on the map outside of the mid lane feels comfortable for them. He's about to get ganked. Nowhere outside of the mid lane has felt comfortable for the Valhalla Valkyries. Twig over to solo lane, dash out by Aquarius. Twig takes some early chunk damage, and looks like the Kings actually look for a fight. Kirmi instead steals away some of the back camps. Genetics over to the right side of the map. Aquarius has Descent into Madness. Variety has Eagles Rally. Drop kick out of Kirmi. Blink forward and the double pull from Captain Twig. Eyes are on the Cthulhu. There's the stun, but it's Descent into Madness enough? It sure isn't. Captain Twig is on a killing spree in the first 5 minutes of this game. Benny Q transforms into Cthulhu. Circle of Protection doing work. Big Man Ting's now on the board, and Benny Q is as well, but the Camelot Kings will add a couple of kills to the Valhalla Valkyries 1.
Great communication between Twig and Tings there. He jukes backwards to make sure Circle Protection was able to heal him. Benny Q and Descent into Madness, there's no way that Twig was able to escape that, had already used the ultimate and the dashes. So, in juking back, at least buys a little bit of time for his team, gets a little bit more HP for himself, and turns around that kill. Make sure that Benny Q falls down as well. 6 kills in as many minutes for the Camelot Kings, and the pace does not seem to be slowing down whatsoever. But the Valhalla Valkyries, silver linings, they got one.
Do you lose Kirmi again, though? No, is the answer. Kirmi will jump away. Gamma locks Genetics in place, but is this just a bait? Cataclysm forces the beads from Benny Q, and Spirit Ball from Big Man Tings will not connect. So Wowie and Netrioid left alone. I will cautiously say, at least Wowie's on the Jingwei and can play somewhat safe here in this lane. But Netrioid on the Heimdall has the ability to make some plays happen. So not only do the Devourer's Gauntlet myth for both of the ADCs need some time to stack up, Big Man Tings going Warlock Staff out of the mid lane, a bit different from the standard builds we've seen.
Yeah, Warlock Staff is an item that I think is still incredibly slept on. Just the base stats on it are incredibly strong. It's a lot of power. It now also has percent pen on it, and the HP you get is just ridiculous. So it is a ton of survivability over to Big Man Tings. He's going to be able to utilize that additional HP very well with the damage mitigations from his ultimate, the spell magic, giving HP shields as well. That's
a good item.
It's just straight up good. It's been overshadowed a lot. It slows down your power spikes comparatively to like the Divine Rune Spear of Desolation start.
Right.
But with those items being nerfed as they were, I wouldn't be surprised if Warlock Staff gets a little bit more priority, especially considering we've been seeing a lot of early Charon's coins.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 10% less penetration, but still pretty strong. You don't need a whole lot this early.
That feels good when you're able to get it fully stacked up. All right, it's a Big Man Tings, a bit unconventional, but what could be a little bit more conventional in coming matchups if mid laners end up adjusting their mid lane build. Still a 2-level lead in the jungle and 2 levels over in solo lane. Variety has been a part of everything over on the right side of the map, outside of a kill or two that's happened mid and left. And playing around that is a strong look for the Camelot Kings. Shogun's Kusari, first item for Variety here. Not surprising, you know, you expect the Shoguns, Berserkers, Frostbound, things like that. What you don't love is Variety now being in a spot where he can run down members of the Valhalla Valkyries and really take control of the right side, blue buffs, things like that. Bologna in a very strong spot here in the first 8 minutes of this game. Valkyries are able to slow down the pace a little bit. It was an onslaught early from the Kings, but the Valkyries have been able to take a deep breath.
They have been, but that deep breath might not last too much longer. Big man Tings on E-set has just got some of the best objective play on the map. Gotta think the Camelot Kings are going to try and leverage that towards a Gold Fury, maybe the Pyromancer once that spawns 10 minutes in, especially considering Variety is pretty massive on this side of the map. A little heat check on how the game's going so far. If the support is ever the same level as a jungle on the opposite side, that does not bode well. Genetics on Geb, level 8. Kirmi on the Gilgamesh, similarly level 8. Has gotten lucky though, Kirmi that is, with his quest items. Gets a little bit of defense. From behind, defense not as valuable as power, but some additional survivability can go a long way when you've been the target of this much aggression.
When it's free, it also helps. Gonna need the defense now. Dropkick doesn't do much. Captain Twig does a lot. Up and over the wall goes Kirmi. Gamma roots Twig in place into the ultimate. Goes to Shiva. Variety and Genetics close by. Not enough damage onto Gamma just yet. And it looks like all the members of the Valkyries will be able to escape. Aquarius still has a Set into Madness, and a blue buff is spawning. But 3 members of the Camelot Kings are here. This would be tough for the Valhalla Valkyries to defend. Netrioid walking forward forces the airstrike out of Wowie, who I believe was able to drop the purple buff. But Netrioid just walks in early Silver Branch bow myth in that build. Means Netrioid's able to win that trade.
Yeah, Wowie loses his ultimate, so massive line of safety gone. He also misses out on an entire wave to that tower. Netrioid gets aggressive towards that purple buff and zones Wowie away, and even tracks BennyQ's attention over towards the left side of the map. So, one aggressive play from Netrioid slows down the farm in mid from BennyQ, makes sure that Wowie's falling behind as well. Netrioid's been controlling these camps on the left-hand side. Right side camp's been largely controlled by Captain Twig. This is a slow chokeout by the Camelot Kings, asphyxiating the Valhalla Valkyries.
This is what the Kings do, though. They play the objective. They play the map so effectively that even if they're not getting 6 kills early in the game, the gold lead tends to look the way it is now anyway, because the Camelot Kings will take the Pyromancer quietly. They'll rotate over to the Gold Fury here shortly and build up their lead that way. Blue buff invades are consistent. The macro play of this Kings team is rarely in question. And game number 1 against the Valks here, certainly no different. Do you wonder when you start to feel comfortable enough to consider that Gold Fury? That would
right now
largely shift up the state of the game, in a sense that it would get worse, much worse for the Valhalla Valkyries if the Kings are able to quietly grab them.
Yeah, alarm bells should be ringing for the Valhalla Valkyries and their fans. 5,000 gold at 11 minutes is just stifling. Gold Fury could very well remove even more of the hands of power, or off the levers of power. Whatever the quote is, man.
You're
Wowie in trouble.
Yeah, Wowie is in trouble and had to use the airstrike. That'd have been enough damage to tower dive there. Certainly enough damage between Variety and Twig here to grab a kill onto Kirmi to send the madness out of Aquarius. Will it save the Cthulhu's life, though? Variety is simply wailing away. But a tier 1 tower is a bastion of safety for the solo laner, and Kirmi down for the 3rd time this game. And this is unique. You know, the Valks have been, you know, not immune from struggles. Gold Fury looks like will be quietly taken by the Kings, but Gamma's close by. Circle protection goes down. Gotta block out some of the damage, and the Camelot Kings detonate their ultimates. They'll grab the Gold Fury. Twig being chased down by BennyQ, who is transformed into the Cthulhu in a rotation that's worthwhile from the mid laner. But Variety hoping to strike back, make some reparations for his jungler going down. Eagles rally, stuns up BennyQ. And Variety might have just enough damage to chase down Aquarius here. There's no Frostbound, so the chase will be difficult. But in a few moments of chaos, Gold Fury goes to the Kings. BennyQ rotates over and grabs a kill, but it's traded back.
It is a high-value trade at that. BennyQ just can't be falling. Anytime Benny gets a kill, awesome for the Valkyries, but if he falls down immediately afterward, he's essentially just reset his own bounty, making sure that the Camelot Kings get full value for taking him out. Big man Ting's able to push in a couple waves in mid as well, so that disparity continues to grow, now 2 levels in mid. At least Kirmi's been able to close up the experience gap slightly, and Kirmi hasn't gotten any kills between his deaths, so his bounty remains low. Silver linings, again, when you're this far behind, they don't sound like silver linings, but they are. The Valhalla Valkyries significantly behind. They have just got to slow down this game. Unfortunately for the Valks, the Camelot Kings macro play, so strong, has desynced the neutral objectives, has also controlled the Greater Scorpions, has also gotten dominance around these obelisks. So gold is going to continue to get worse for a little while just by rote, slowly. But I think by the time Pyromancer respawns, the Valhalla Valkyries should be able to use this double Cthulhu-style composition to find at least one pick or slow down the aggression, maybe dissuade the Camelot Kings. Time's the name of the game right now. The Valhalla Valkyries just have not got a lot of it.
A strong Cthulhu shred build for Netrioid already. Silver Branch, as we've mentioned, immediately into the chin size. So the health shred will be there from this Heimdall early on in the game. And so whenever a team fight does break out, not only are you ahead in gold, but you've got a decent looking build on your Hunter as well. And then, of course, some percent pen from Big Man Tings will help out. Valhalla Valkyries searching for a fight. But Captain Twig is in his ultimate, and again, Kirmi goes in but gets shredded down. Before the Gilgamesh can do anything, Variety drops the hammer onto Kirmi. Benny Q is transformed, but that Cthulhu is low. The fight begins while Netrioid still split pushing on the left side of the map. This should be a fight. The Valkyries have a numbers advantage in, but you've lost your jungler, you've lost your mid laner. Captain Twig is on a warpath. Variety searching for the back line, and he'll find it.
Yeah, the Camelot Kings just dominating this team fight. Poor target selection from the Valhalla Valkyries as Gamma and Aquarius try and limp their way back towards base. It's Gamma that decides to take that engagement, a dash forward into the entangling wings. But when you are targeting two people as Nox, and Geb's one of them, you gotta hit Geb with the Shadow Lock. You have to put him inside the silence. Because what happens there? It's entangling wings. Okay, I'll lock down, I believe it was Captain Twig. That doesn't work. Genetics walks out of the silence, Stone shields his boy, and turns the fight immediately. And it's exactly what Trelly had highlighted on the desk. If you are targeting anyone that is not Geb with this Nox combo, the Nox combo will simply be nullified, and that's what happens there. The Camelot Kings take the team fight cleanly immediately afterward. And I'm not even sure what the Valhalla Valkyries are fighting for there. There's no Pyromancer. You're not sieging. It's not a base defense. You got to think that they would have loved to slow down the pace of this game, but instead they pushed the envelope and they didn't have much weight behind it.
And in the meantime, Netrioid just split pushes over on dual lane. Netrioid fantasy owners begging for a crumb of action on the left side of the map. He's affected one kill, but just been split pushing over the rest. Whereas the right side of the map has been an absolute war zone. And unfortunately for the Valkyries, they haven't been winning that war at all. Tier 1 tower looked at, and Variety and the damage that Netrioid's got will be a bit of an afterthought. And the Camelot Kings, I suppose you can just keep going. Let's look at this Tier 2 tower. Let's see how far we can push on this side of the map. It's only Aquarius. Big Man Tings is around behind, as Cthulhu's going to have to use a little bit of everything. Step back from Aquarius means Spear Ball doesn't connect. But the Tier 2 tower now on the right side of the map goes down. Captain Twig alone with 3 members of the Valks. You got to make something happen here. It's a 1 versus 3.
He might win.
But the ultimate's so strong from Captain Twig at keeping himself on the map. And it's immediately back to the FG for the Camelot Kings. And Captain Twig is not even going down. He has got a lot of damage. Wowie and Kirmi and Gamma, they will finally combine for a kill. But in the meantime, the Camelot Kings are shredding through the Fire Giant.
Aquarius starting to march on over, but no shot. He's beating out Circle Protection. Fire Giant will go to the Camelot Kings, and that's a good look at how slippery Shiva can be. That double dash, CC immune ultimate, additional HP, has some pretty decent CC that he can toss out while on the retreat as well. Captain Twig buys a whole lot of time for his team. Whether or not it was necessary, I'm not sure, but at least it does get the Fire Giant over to the Camelot Kings. So maybe Benny would go for a sneaky, just, I'm going to trade my life for somebody style of play. But he's spotted out and decides to fully retreat himself. The Camelot Kings, even in losing Twig and him not having Fire Giant, I think can feel confident in their ability to siege, because this gold lead is already at 12,000. Good lord.
Yeah, at 18 minutes, the Camelot Kings are a bit on easy street at this point. It would be a miraculous turnaround for the Valhalla Valkyries, who have just not been able to get momentum going. You know, it's rare for Kiermi, I think specifically, to sort of fall this far behind early on in a game. You know, normally it's Kiermi making some stuff happen on the Shiva jungle. The Gilgamesh has looked pretty good here as of late. Really just seemed like the right side of the map for the Camelot Kings was never going to falter. And alternatively, for the Valkyries, never got much footing. Got a little bit longer, meaning a lot longer, on your Fire Giant buff if you're the Camelot Kings. All 3 Phoenixes are open very early on. The Fury gets taken down. It's Oni Fury. And so you're going to have some good push utility if you're the Camelot Kings to open up some of these Phoenixes. But if I have to imagine, you're at a point in the game now, if you're the Kings, that you're so far ahead, Fire Giant, Oni minions, whatever or not, you're probably feeling just fine on a Phoenix Siege.
You are, but the Camelot Kings are a team that would always go for the 100% play.
Yeah.
If there's an option between 99.9 and 100 will take you an extra 30 seconds.
Are you
they'll
rolling?
spend
Are
that 30
you
seconds.
rolling the dice on the 99.9 myth?
I'm rolling my dice on like a 60%er, man. if I think it ends the game a little bit earlier,
Yeah,
the
fair
Camelot
enough.
Kings, not of like mine. They're gonna go ahead, try and take out Benny.
Myth, there's a world where the game does end here in some of these next few engagements. Captain Twig is just going to run at Benny Q as circle protection goes down. But if nothing else, Benny Q's back has been stopped. Or Captain Twig fighting out against Benny Q over on right. Eagles rally in from Variety. Wowie saved by the drop kick of Kiermi. Left side Phoenix melted through by the Camelot Kings. Benny Q finally gets back to base. Captain Twig still pushing out the right side of the map, and Kings got what they came for. The left side Phoenix goes down quietly.
And Benny doesn't have Changeling anymore, so no double Cthulhu action for the Valhalla Valkyries, which is their strongest team fight tool. If they can kill Genetics here, that's a great start.
It is a great start, but there's no finish. Genetics will walk out, Stone shields himself, and rolls right away from this fight. Now Captain Twig around the right side, while the rest of the Camelot Kings will delete Benny Q. Aquarius low in the health pool, but so is Wowie, as Big Man Tings let some damage roll on through the front of this fight. The Valhalla Valkyries stumbled early on in game number 1, and it looks like the Camelot Kings will finally do him some justice and put him down. Game 1, in all likelihood, to the Camelot Kings. The Wowie, Aquarius, and Kiermi. Okay,
Aquarius and Kiermi.
strike Wowie from that conversation. Aquarius and Kiermi are into the back line. You got to be worried about your Titan, and the Camelot Kings are on it. The Camelot Kings will convincingly take game 1.
They do. Just 1 or 2 mistakes early on really mitigates the strengths of this Valhalla Valkyries draft.
That was convincing.
The Valks draft, it really was, hey, we've got 1 early game piece that'll slow down the Camelot Kings. We can start to utilize the double Cthulhu, play around our Morgan come 20, 25 minutes in. But your early game piece was Gilgamesh, and he was dead twice in, what was that, like a minute, 2 minutes maybe, and that's not so great.
Captain Twig, a fantastic early game here. The Bologna gets out of control. This is, what, a 20-minute game? I mean, this is peak Smite from the Camelot Kings. Valhalla Valkyries. Time to bounce back in game number 2. Can they do it? Let's stick around and find out.
Camelot Kings come back hot here in game number 1, and they show just why they used to be the #1 seed here, at least here in this phase of the SPL, with a dominant 20-minute game here over the Valhalla Valkyries, and fairly clean across the board here. I mean, these guys are showing exactly why they are some of the top in the league. And we still get to see some of the same struggles of the Valkyries that we had seen in times prior coming up here in game number 1. Trelly, not much more can really go beyond here. I mean, macro play from the Kings, something we talk about, but this is just dominance across the board.
This was typical run-of-the-mill Camelot King Smite. Twig is able to shut down Kirmi pretty much instantly in that early phase, finding, I think, 2 deaths in the first 2 minutes or so on this Shiva, and then the Gilgamesh is vastly unimpactful after that. I mean, if you take some early spills like this, it's not going to help you out in any stretch of the word. In your jungle, obviously, Variety found some early success as well on this Bologna, which meant that, you know, Genetics could completely shut down the Nox, which was going to be a big issue. It seemed like they got out-drafted as well as out-farmed.
Yeah, I mean, right here, Captain Twig on the Shiva, really showing the impact that this god has in the early stages of the game here. I mean, that's something that we were kind of talking about Shiva with his introduction to the SPL. It's something we talked about even during his time in SCC, where this god really shines in the early game, where his early healing, his early damage is something that you can't really mitigate too much. The double undr'able CC between the pull from the sweep and the knockup, just so impactful here. And Twig putting on display very early on to the game. I mean, Aquarius, Gamma specifically also against this Geb just didn't really get an opportunity to find any combos. Something that you brought up, you know, in that pregame is when you have this Nox versus Geb, if you're not targeting that Geb, Geb is pretty much going to completely nullify your character.
Yeah, it's just so difficult to try and make this matchup work. There was a lot of different counters, I will say. Obviously, with Netroid's vision, you can always know where BennyQ is in that stealth. We've already touched on the fact that this Geb is going to vastly shut down this Nox if not played correctly. And Kirmi, if not getting off to a good start, I mean, Gilgamesh from behind is not going to be that successful, and we see here it just wasn't enough damage across the board. Of course, Cthulhu's going to look flashy because he gets so much AoE, but besides that, just weren't able to get the ball rolling here. The Valks usually come out swinging game 1 and then sort of teeter off. Right now, though, the Camelot Kings just look too hot.
Yeah, I mean, this is just classic Kings performance, kind of like you said here. They come out, they've got a game plan, they got a draft plan, they know exactly what they want to do, and they study up on their teams. And this is something, obviously, every team is out here, you know, kind of studying their opponents, figuring out what kind of picks are they doing. They're watching their scrims back. They're going, okay, these guys ran this composition against us once. Maybe we got an answer for that this time around. And it's something that we saw the Kings brought out last week against the Warriors, where they brought out this really strange, this kind of new comp that we haven't seen in quite some time. You know, this new setup style, giving Captain Twig Athena jungle, which hasn't been a thing in such a long time. And it worked really well for them to start things out. And then the Warriors got one nice little team fight at the end. They ended that one. And then the Kings tried to run it back, and the Warriors said, I don't think you can do that here. And a team like the Valkyries, it's going to take them some time to make those kinds of adaptations here. So, Charlie, as we get ready to jump into game number 2, what kind of changes do you think the Valks need to make against the Kings?
I mean, it's going to be difficult because I think we've touched on this a fair bit. The fact that the Valks are a very new team and they're still very young. They have some veteran presence in Aquarius and Wowie, but besides that, they're very new to the league, and they come out swinging in game 1, and then they usually the adjustments get made against them. So now it's at the point where you lose game 1. How quickly can you adapt to the Camelot Kings? Because there's teams that have been around for much longer with much more, not to say talent, because the Valhalla Valkyries have a very talented roster. It's just, it's very difficult to make the adjustments from behind, especially when you don't come out swinging. So the Valks, number 1, I think they have to work on the draft. Obviously, the Cthulhu, they had the answers for it. The Camelot Kings knew how to shut that one down. I always like the Valks. I think they look the best when BennyQ is on one of these characters that can just go in and get damage, like the Zhongqi, for example. Even like the raw, the sit-back playstyle, I don't think that's what's going to be best for them here. They have to go for something where Benny can be commanding and make those sort of plays.
And let's see if the Valks do draft themselves a run-it-down style of composition here in game number 2. Picks and pans ready to go back between these ones here. The man here on the screen there, Kirmi, though, not able to get off to the same level of start that we would have expected with the Gilgamesh when we saw what he was able to do yesterday against the Leviathans on that pick. And maybe had some higher expectations going into that game, but was not able to do so here. As first bands come out, Yamoji and Kleena, nothing quite different here. Those are the same bands that we saw last time around, alongside that Khepri. And this Khepri specifically, I've talked about it between Aurora and Genetics, but just in general, this god has like, what, like an 80+% win rate across the SPL, and in hands like Genetics and Aurora's like 75% plus each. So maybe not so much of a surprise that the Valkyries are willing to put some respect on that god in general.
It makes your whole play style. You have to play around Scarab's Blessing, which is what no team wants to do. They want you to adhere to their play style, but just by locking in Khepri, you essentially say, you can't dive this person without putting a little bit extra stock into this team fight, whether it be your CC, hold a bit of your burst, that sort of thing. And I don't think any team really wants to deal with that, especially when Genetics knows how to pilot this character so well. Bologna, though, will be the first adaptation made for the Valks. They're not going to put so much stock into that Cthulhu. They want to take this Bologna away from variety and try to get Aquarius in a very high-pressure, very in-your-face style warrior. But it looks like answering back, they're just going to run back to Shiva. I have no problem with this. Captain Twig looked phenomenal on this pick last game.
Yeah, I mean, you take the Bologna, that means you at least put variety on something maybe a little bit lower priority here, but with Shiva and Gilgamesh locked in, could mean that one of those two are going over towards the solo lane. And this is something that we talk about with the Kings is you give variety on one of these powerhouse, run it down kind of gods. He will just dominate the map no matter what, and no matter how long it takes. He will get to that point where he is just W King down at 5 people. And either of these picks are ones that we can see him do that with. I mean, we've seen what Shiva can do in the hands of, like, Nico over in the solo lane, even when you get to these late game stages here. So whether the Shiva goes back over to Captain Twig and the Gilgamesh to variety, or vice versa, Kings have a nice top 2 for themselves. But that does leave open the Charybdis, and the Bacchus, a signature dual lane of the Valkyries, even back from their Winter Dogs days.
Yeah, I think this is a very smart play by the Valks here. Last game, they put this dual lane off until the very end, which just wasn't exactly how they wanted to play. They tried to adhere to more of this. Let's get the meta comp, the Morgan Cthulhu, try running that. Didn't work out. This time around, get Wowie and Gamma on something where they can be extremely active early, but also safe. Charybdis, arguably one of the safest ADCs in that long lane because you can just immune all the damage and run away. Whereas Bacchus can just flop in consistently and set up all sorts of damage in that dual lane. So I think this is a very smart adaptation by the Valks. They want to come out swinging and not hold off until late game with that dual lane. But now that we see the Terra, the Shiva or the Gilgamesh, one of those are going into solo. For me, I think the Gilgamesh prefers to have those auto-attack eccentric items, so probably going to be the solo laner. But either way, I mean, Twig just had such a good Shiva performance. Either one of those is going to be difficult to deal with.
Yeah, it could go either way here. And I was kind of wondering that when the Bologna got looked at, it's like, oh, man, that just means that the Kings can probably pick up either Shiva or Gilga again or take the Gilga maybe away from Kirmi or pick up the Shiva and keep that one. But then they decide to pick up both and with the Terra. So all the front line once again locked in for the Kings to start this one out. The Kings go for a very respectful ban here up against BennyQ specifically. What a day and time that we live in where we're seeing an Anubis ban come out here in the SPL, but up against the Valkyries, up against BennyQ specifically, maybe not so much of a surprise. Then a Medusa right after that one to the Valks, continue to take away one of those former top hunters.
Yeah, the only thing I can see here that would not want to deal with this Anubis pick, right? Because it's funny that the fact that it's even getting banned is Shiva's damage takes a little bit to get online, and it's more of like it's not a burst where it's more so just like a slow burn, which Anubis does. You don't want to deal with that if you're against an Anubis where he can just sort of drop the laser eyes and heal back up to full at that point. So that could be a little bit annoying to dive. And obviously the knockup immunity that BennyQ already touched on in that interview against Shiva is really nice. You just use the Plague of Locusts to immune the knockup, and then you're sort of just standing your own ground in that fight. But the Bakasura is also going to be banned away here. So just some quick farming they don't want to deal with. The Camelot Kings prioritize that quick farming. And Bakasura is the only jungle that could really do it better than them. That's the only thought process I could really go to here as to why they wouldn't want to play against that. We saw Scream go the Baka. Didn't really work out.
No.
We saw Twig go the Baka, and it also didn't really work out. So that's got to be the only reason they'd be going for that.
I can't even think of the last time I've seen a Baka really work out outside of maybe the amateur scene since like the days of Johnny is kind of the last time I really remember having a massive rise in popularity and success out of that god here. So seeing the ban may be a little bit interesting. Jingwei, though, going to be the ban on the side of the Valks along with that Medusa.
The bitter winds
But
of Niflheim.
Netro had played Heimdall last game. No reason he doesn't need to play it again here. Something nice and safe to go up against Charybdis. So two very safe hunters over in that dual lane. Might see some early action in that lane at the very least. I mean, a nice, easy setup between the Terra and the Bacchus on either side here. So could see sparks fly in the dual lane early on. But now with the Valkyries back over here, they need their mid laner. They need their jungler, so Kirmi and Benny saving their picks for last year. Any picks in particular for you, Charlie, that may stick out for a grab here for the Valks?
I mean, we'll have to see what sort of stock they put on dealing with this Shiva. Obviously, BennyQ went to the Anubis last time. This time around, it's not going to be an option. You're banned away, so you have to play something that you're not used to. We haven't really seen BennyQ on these assassin mids ever since the SPL started. I mean, we know that he brought him out in the SCC, and we knew that was something that he liked to lean towards, but now That's not really what he's been bringing out lately. And you don't really have too much magical damage drafted already with the fact that it's only Bacchus at the moment. But in his own right, I think there's a few different picks he could go to. We've seen the Raw, but into triple dive with Heimdall in the back, it's going to be very hard to bring out that Raw here. Persephone, though, is arguably the safer pick with more damage available. I think they probably could lean on that if they want to. BennyQ does like this Persephone. It just really depends on what they're looking for here. Obviously, when you get stuffed this early, like hear me, falling so early on in that game yesterday, you got to draft some early pressure here.
Oh.
And that could be a Bologna jungle now. That seems to be what we're looking at here, unless BennyQ's playing Cthulhu mid, man. That seems to be what we're looking. Okay, it's Bastet mid. It's gotta be Bastet mid.
Let's play.
This is BennyQ. I have no idea. You mentioned the Cthulhu mid, and now I'm thinking it could be. You may have accidentally willed it into existence here, Trelly.
It's gotta be Bastet mid. There's no way Cthulhu can exist in the mid lane.
You are saying this, but I remember tuning into a BennyQ stream one day, and he says, "Yo, guys, this looks like a really good Ganesh mid game."
Yeah, well, Wrong, you also tweeted that Janus support was going to be good, and here we are. So
here's the difference, though, between a tweet and actually doing it in stream and doing well with it, though.
I mean, I suppose just right now, I understand what the Valks are going for here in the sense that they just got stuffed very early on in game number 1. You do not want to come off to a bad start like that, so they have to answer back with something. I mean, Genetic said it best. BennyQ's quirky, and so one of these picks he will be piling, and I have to imagine number 1. It's either Bastet mid or Cthulhu mid. There's no way that it's going to be the Bologna. So I'm thinking if it is the Cthulhu mid, which, all right, Jithens just gave us a little hint. It is going to be that Cthulhu mid. There's going to be a lot more damage to deal with for the Persephone specifically. It's hard to try and get away from that, but also if you get ahead, you can pretty much just one-shot the Cthulhu mid.
I'm glad that we got that little tip from production here. So we'll be Cthulhu mid for BennyQ here on the Valkyries. Now that we do know what this, at least mid laner, kind of lineup is going to be, assuming here that the Bastet is going to be going into the jungle now, Bologna into the solo lane up against the Kings here. Now, how do you kind of fit? Now I'm gonna make you talk about the Cthulhu mid. You were talking about the Bastet mid. You were talking about all that kind of stuff. I'm gonna make you talk about the Cthulhu mid here, Charlie. I mean, what kind of things can BennyQ kind of offer here up against this Persephone?
I mean, I will say the Persephone is really the only person you're able to kill, at least in the early portion of the game, because Persephone can leap away, and then at that point you're still stuck in the Descent into Madness. But the one negative of this pick is the fact that if you're going Cthulhu mid, you're probably building a lot of damage, which means you can't dive the tower. You're not going to be that tanky. In the Descent into Madness, there is some avenues for you to find some big burst damage, but you have triple dive you're dealing with. Tarek, Gilgamesh, and Shiva. You're going to have to get a Divine Ruin because of the healing, so it's going to be hard, but BennyQ obviously has a plan here. He's probably played this before, and I think he's going to understand at least how to play it in the early game, because if you fall, with these, I'm not going to say troll style picks, with these interesting style picks, if you die like pre-5 minutes, your laning phase is pretty much just done.
I'm worried about my fantasy points more than anything. I think with the Cthulhu mid out here, I'm a little worried on how my fantasy points might pan out up against this one. BMT on the Persephone up against him here. He's talking about the strengths of the dive composition that the Kings have drafted here. I mean, they can make this mid 2v2 kind of a living nightmare out here for the Valkyries. Even that solo lane, whether that Shiva or the Gilgamesh goes that way, will at least be able to stand up to this Bologna that's going to be there for the side of the Valkyries. For the Camelot Kings, I mean, this roster here, I mean, this screams they can still continue to bull send that objective play here. I mean, where can the Valkyries find some ways in to try and slow down the pace of this game?
You have the Cthulhu. That ultimate is going to slow things down at the very least. You don't have too much burst. I mean, Cthulhu can do a little bit of burst damage, but it's not very quick. It's sort of petered out. His 1-2-3 combo is not going to be one-shotting anyone, at least until late game. So we'll just have to see where they put that pressure. BennyQ, again, could get very far ahead early or fall very far behind early. We'll have to see.
We'll see where this Cthulhu mid can strike out. Can it work or will it fall? Let's find out in Game 2.
Valhalla Valkyries are throwing a lot at the wall and seeing what sticks here in game number 2. And BennyQ on another interesting pick out of mid. Has played somewhat standard mages, it feels like, throughout the year so far, Myth. But we were due for, well, I guess we had an Anubis yesterday. Technically a mage, though. So it feels like we were due for a BennyQ pick. And this is a BennyQ pick in mid.
Well, you know, I'm reaching now. I'm reaching, but I would argue 85% of the impact BennyQ had in game 1 was playing as Cthulhu.
Was
just being Cthulhu. So maybe he's trying to cut out the middleman. Why get the Changeling cooldown when you could just have Descent into Madness?
Right.
That said, he's going to be struggling in clear. Cthulhu has generally struggled in clear. That's why his main weakness in the soul lane. That's why we see so many people camp out that lane and make sure that blue buffs are always going to the other side. Now it's going to be the red buff that's under contention.
Kirmi jumps towards Variety, who is on the Gilgamesh. We haven't seen Gilg solo in a little while. I figured it would be Shiva solo and Gilgamesh in the jungle. But no, when Captain Twig has a game one like he did, why change things up? So Variety will pilot the Gilgamesh here this game. A strong 2 versus 2 over in the solo lane between a Gilgamesh and a Shiva. But Variety has got to leap away as Bastet plus Bologna is winning the early trades.
Yeah, I would think that Shiva's matchup is just infinitely better into Bologna, because the majority of your damage on Gilgamesh is coming from the Sun Scimitar, which is an empowering stim for your auto attacks. Aquarius is just going to disarm you every single time you do it. Maybe max dropkick, I suppose, to try and mitigate some of that pressure in lane. Whereas, had it been Shiva solo, you've got 2 forms of CC that could deal with bludgeon. Your wave clear isn't so reliant on your auto attacks. Feels like it's maybe a slight misplay. Even I know Captain Twig had a great game, and he did. But maybe just talking about draft, you'd probably prefer having Shiva in the solo.
Duo lane has been a bit of a scrap early on. Variety low here, but we'll be able to jump away. But there's been a lot of jumping away from Variety, who has teleport. Aquarius does as well. So he'll be able to go back, reset, head on back to solo lane, and feel just fine. Gamma and Wowie, what an interesting duo this now duo lane is. You got the hyper-aggressive pick in the box. He wants to belly flop in, belch early, get some fights going. And then the safe pick in the Charybdis up against Genetics and Netrioid, and some similarities there, but has not felt uncomfortable for the Valkyries here as of just yet. Blue buff invade being looked at by the Valkyries. Camelot Kings close enough by to maybe counter this out. Variety used the teleport, so there is an immediate item advantage on the map for Variety, because Variety has had to go back and teleport back to lane, so blue buff should be defendable. And it is by the Camelot Kings. The Valhalla Valkyries will pick their battles, and invading the blue buff was not the fight they were looking to take.
It wasn't. Here's that aggressive lane we were talking about, though. Netrioid in some trouble.
And in goes Wowie. The knockback from Netrioid is big. Genetics just needs one last auto attack. Gamma is low in the back line as well. Walls go up, walls come together. But Wowie with the health pot looks like he'll delay his life a little bit further. Genetics grabs first blood. Now Gamma under threat of being rooted in place. Beads get used by both Gamma and Wowie, and the Camelot Kings out a kill.
That was sloppy play from both teams, though. Wowie overchases in the jungle. Gamma doesn't follow up. Aquarius forced to use his ultimate defensively in trade with Winds of Shamash over in the soul lane. And then afterward, the stun from Genetics is good, but Netrioid doesn't toss out the auto to finish off the kill, so maybe Genetics forced into a situation where he might fall down. Either way, the Camelot Kings come out ahead in that trade. Relic trade, though, they also come out ahead. Netrioid holds on to his beads. It only costs Genetics the shell, whereas Gamma and Wowie lose out on their relics. That's a rough start for the duo lane. Valhalla Valkyries, things were going well. Maybe not so much anymore.
Kirmi, his eyes for Captain Twig. Who will live as Kirmi jumps away. It's playmaking time now for Kirmi. Hunters of Vast, great at setting up fights onto particular targets. Twig doesn't have beads, but does, of course, have the CC immune ultimate. Big man tinks with beads. Netrioid, the other set of beads on the map for the Camelot Kings. So if you're Kirmi here, Miff, where are you putting your pressure to get the Valhalla Valkyries rolling here? Get some gold, hopefully some kills rolling here across the map in Game 2.
See, generally I would say you probably want to focus Captain Twig because he's really hard to react with that ultimate to Hunters of Bast, but because you don't have a standard mage in mid, and instead you've got a Cthulhu who's more so suited for a long chase down fight, doesn't have the burst follow-up, it's going to be very difficult. There's like legitimately very low synergy for the Valhalla Valkyries around that Bastet ultimate.
Drop kick no good from Variety. Blink in from Kirmi. And the Valkyries find an early kill, but now Captain Twig with some damage of his own. One more tick is all he needs, and Twig has got it. Aquarius under threat as Genetics has made the long journey to right. And the Terra now adds another. Gamma melting down the obelisk, but the rotation out more effective from Genetics.
Yeah, Camelot Kings just getting the better end of that trade yet again, pushing their gold lead to that finally 4-digit mark at around 1,000. Gamma continually getting aggressive, though. A weird jump in. Netroid might be able to turn this one around.
This is a 1 versus 1. Gamma won't have belly flop for a couple of seconds. Bifrost goes down. That is the most casual chase down you will ever see. Belly flop in from Gamma does not pay off. Netroid with ults and autos. That's another kill on the left.
Yeah, I mean, you just used Gallarhorn to immune the knockup from the leap in from Gamma. It's just a very low percentage win there for the Bacchus. The whole bet is Gamma says, all right, he just won't react. If Gallarhorn comes out, Gamma just loses the fight, and Gallarhorn came out. So he did.
Benny Q uses the, oh my god, the squishiest Cthulhu I've ever seen as an ultimate out from Big Man Tings. Nearly adds another onto Kirmi. The worrying trend, Myth, is that we're already at a very similar pace to how game number 1 was, and the Camelot King starting to roll very, very quickly here. Benny Q gets absolutely deleted. Suppose that's the mage tendency with all the damage the Kings have. Genetics has eyes for the obelisk, but Gamma will use the beads. This is a 3 versus 2, but the Kings unhappy with taking an engagement on that side of the map, and will end up backing themselves off. 2,000 gold or so. Camelot Kings find themselves in the lead. Haven't seen any, dictation by the Valkyries here. This has all been the Camelot Kings asking questions, and the Valkyries just haven't had answers.
The only questions I think they've posed, the Valkyries that is whether or not Variety is capable of defending this blue buff. Kirmi and Aquarius putting a whole lot of pressure on this side of the map. Good body blocks from Aqua. Slow down the pickup of Variety. Aqua, though, will not chase over the wall with his own ultimate. Blue buff successfully defended by the Camelot Kings, but it does cost Variety a good deal of his HP. That said, I don't think the Kings super care if Variety's doing a whole lot on this side of the map. They're winning so hard elsewhere.
Variety drop kicks, no good. Now there's jump in by Kirmi and Aquarius, and when you send that much Variety's way with only Berserker Shield, you should always find a kill, and the Valkyries do. So Aquarius is in a good spot, a level lead over Variety. It's Captain Twig also a bit ahead, but everything Genetics has done this game has impacted kills. And now the Terra is over on the right side of the map. Aquarius dashes forward, caught between the walls as Captain Twig has got a lot of damage here as well. Big Man Tings rotates over from mid lane and will shotgun blast Aquarius with a grasp of death. And now blue buff invade being looked at and successful by the Camelot Kings.
You'll never see the wall of fire of Shiva do that much damage. He was just stuck on top of it, stunned inside of it, knocked up immediately afterward. That was a whole lot. Captain Twig putting up a good deal of DPS in that trade. And Aquarius certainly worth some gold. One of the only 2 kills for the Valhalla Valkyries on his belt. So the Camelot Kings happy to take that one for themselves. Whereas Variety, when he falls, man's not worth a whole lot. No kills under his means that his bounty has yet to reset. I'm thinking once Variety starts to rotate out, once these Soul Laners start to get 2-3 items into the build, there's not going to be as much dominance from Aquarius in the lane itself, and it's going to be more so about how the team fight starts to round out, and Winds of Shamash, a very good disruption tool.
Camelot Kings being walked at in the mid lane. Big Man Tings jumped on, Intoxicate is down. BMT secured by Benny Q, but there's an answer back from Captain Twig. The Cthulhu still Descent to Madness, got a lot of damage. Then the Camelot Kings have to run back. Big Man Tings a death here at the hands of Benny Q, but again, not clean. It's a traded out kill by the Camelot Kings. And I suppose that's a small example, Myth, as blue buff is stolen away by Aquarius, of what you can expect from this this Cthulhu mid. Descent to Madness, still is an obnoxious team fight all to go again. Still has some good damage for Benny Q here, and this time it results in a kill.
And it looks like Benny's going to be moving in towards some defense. Breastplate of Valor likely in that second slot. So CDR, a little bit more FizzD, means that he'll be able to survive a bit more. Won't be as squishy as we saw earlier on from the Cthulhu. And will have that Descent to Madness a little bit more often. So keep your eyes on him. I am curious to see whether or not Benny essentially goes for a standard defensive build from here on out, and it's just the Divine Ruin, or whether or not he's going to keep with this aggressive styling. I don't think he can keep with the aggressive style of build. Once you descend to madness in a late game team fight and you are a massive pillar absorbing the aggression of the Camelot Kings, you probably want to have some HP, you probably want to have some defense to survive that aggression.
Variety steps forward as the Tier 1 tower goes down. It's been everything against the Gilgamesh this game, but there's a Shiva here to answer back. And Eagles rally down, drop kick, sends Aquarius to the Tier 2 tower. Variety pulled back into the fight, and Intoxicate secures the kill. At 0-3 now, Variety has just been sat on by the Valhalla Valkyries. In the meantime, though, the Camelot Kings secure the Gold Fury and keep the gold equal.
Yeah, the Camelot Kings, it's a tale of two games right now. It's Variety getting bopped and everybody else just thriving on the map. And, well, I think the Camelot Kings are just fine with that. Again, there's not high expectations for a Gilgamesh into the Bologna matchup. As long as the Kings are doing something elsewhere while 3 members of the Valhalla Valkyries are essentially diving a Tier 2 tower on right, that's just fine. And getting Gold Fury in trade is of massive value. And as long as Variety isn't getting kills, every single time the Valkyries kill him, it means less and less progressively. He's probably worth like 90 to 120 gold right now. That's not a whole lot.
No, small amount of gold. Another blue buff invade. Again, good by Aquarius. Bologna should have the abilities to secure most of those. And so Variety just on an island at this point, trying to farm up as best he can, stay relevant with the rest of his team. But the Camelot Kings have looked good across the map. Small damage exchange between hunters, but Wowie far and away from winning this trade. Chin size on one side for the Charybdis, and Silver Branch bow for Netrioid. Big difference maker here in this initiation, as Netrioid ends up winning that trade. A few members of the Camelot Kings, eyes for this red buff. Game on Benny Q realized it's a fruitless effort, and BMT will secure the red.
He will. The Camelot Kings can't get as aggressive as they were able to in Game 1. Big Man Ting's now on Persephone, just really affording CC and damage. Whereas on the E set, that ability to initiate the fight with ranged CC as well as having that damage mitigation and healing from Circle Protection meant that they could choose, the Camelot Kings that is, fights just about anywhere on the map, in back camps, on objectives early on. So I'm expecting a similar pace to Game 1 in that around that 18-19 minute mark. Wouldn't be surprised if the Camelot Kings with this kind of lead can continually push in towards these neutral objectives. But it won't be the style of, hey, we pulled the objective and we're just going to get it because our confirmation is that much better. It's more so the Camelot Kings are trying to force the Valhalla Valkyries into a position where they have to defend and then immediately peel off of the objective and look towards the team fight. And the Valhalla Valkyries composition is strong in the team fight. As long as Benny Q is there, he's still a Cthulhu. He still does a good deal of damage. He's not as tanky as maybe a Soul Inner would be, but he's got a little bit of survivability. Now moving in towards that Void Stone. The Valhalla Valkyries are down, but certainly not out.
No, not out. We also haven't seen a full-on 5 versus 5 brawl just yet. The Genetics is hovering over on the right side of the map here. A couple members of the Valkyries are close by as well. Be careful, wherever Captain Twig is. Twig is in range to defend this blue buff this time. This Variety has just quietly lost all the rest of the blue buffs. 3-man stun from Aquarius. Earthen Fury down from Genetics. But Captain Twig is in his ult as well. Way in the back line, Captain Twig, or Big Man Tings rather, being run down by Benny Q. But Benny Q has taken so much damage, and Captain Twig will close the gap. BMT does not die. And 1 kill now to the Camelot Kings as Benny Q nearly gets a solo kill onto BMT.
I really like the decision-making there from Benny Q. Once he realizes that he's just dead, sees Captain Twig start to peel back away from that massive fight in the lane and says, okay, well, I'm not outrunning a Shiva. That guy's just super fast with the double dash, the CC mean ultimate, all that CC lockdown from a range. So he says, what can I do here? What's my winning line? And it's, I gotta at least trade my life. I need to at least take down Big Man Tings, and he nearly does so, just does not have enough damage to finish off the kill. Lands all of his abilities. Tings probably survives with sub 100 HP. So, good decision-making on the tail end. Maybe the fight goes a little bit better for the Valkyries had Benny Q been with the bulk of his squad, but, you know, in those situations, cool heads prevail, and a cool head from Benny Q. Didn't prevail, though.
No. Unfortunately, it didn't work out this time for Benny. Cthulhu has looked good in moments. Cthulhu mid, rather, has looked good in moments. And fallen short in others, as a 4,000 gold lead is now built up for the Camelot Kings. Again, it just feels like a similar trend to Game 1, but it has not snowballed quite as quickly. It's this next Oni Fury and maybe even Pyromancer Myth where I'm going to get intrigued. I am intrigued by how the Valhalla Valkyries are going to play around these objectives, because the Kings will gladly take the Pyro, the Fury, all of it without issue. You know, you'll take it just fine. You'll build up your gold. You'll continue this lead rolling. You got to draw the line somewhere. And I wonder if the Valhalla Valkyries are feeling good enough on the left side of the map where a slight level lead for Netrioid is we're equal, but about a half level ahead of Wowie. Very strong build. Could be a difference maker in a fight should it break out. Valkyrie sends some damage Twig's way, and there's a teleport coming out from Variety.
Yeah, Aqua used his teleport a little bit previously, so will not have it available to get back in towards this engagement. The Camelot Kings now 5 strong. Will have an advantage around the Oni Fury. Will the Valhalla Valkyries try and put up a defense? I just gotta think they have to, because this gold lead is already in red alert territory.
Variety drop kick, but he is being shredded by Wowie, who uses the ultimate, stuns Variety, but the shell extends Variety's life. No shot. He lives on the other end of this fight. Variety has baited all of the Valkyries in, and all of the Valkyries may die. Captain Twig gets a second of this fight. Kirby doesn't even finish off the kill onto Variety. Finally, Aquarius does. But what is the cost? Another kill over to the Camelot Kings as 3 members of the Valkyries are down. And enough disengage from the Charybdis should end things here. A 3-for-1, the Kings happy with those numbers.
The Camelot Kings move in towards the Oni, realize the Valhalla Valkyries will try and put up a defense as Genetics gets slammed by an NPC. They peel off the objective and immediately take the team fight. It was BennyQ deep in the back line who descends into the madness, and well, he's not so tanky that he's allowed to make that play. It was an immediate turnaround. Netrioid sinks a whole lot of damage into him. Immediately afterward, as you said, Variety essentially absorbs the aggression of the Valhalla Valkyries and miraculously survives. Sticks around maybe a little bit longer than he needed to, but at least sets up for the rest of his team to take the larger of the 2 neutral objectives to have fallen. Valhalla Valkyries pick up Pyromancer in response, but the gold lead has still extended in favor of the Chaos team.
Let's look back at exactly what happens to Variety Myth, because early on, this is a good initiation. For whatever reason, I was thinking Genetics, who dies to the Fury. I thought we were watching that replay. No, Variety, at the beginning of this fight, my goodness, he gets down to like 60 HP. And it's this from, and look, he pulls the eyes of, later on in that replay, he pulled the eyes of Kirmi, who jumped over the wall, and so Kirmi was out of the fight for a second, and Variety swapped spots with them. It was a great play out of the solo lane, despite being 0-4-4 from Variety. Netrioid,
That guy might be dead.
Connects with Aquarius with the ultimate. Drop kick sends Aquarius back, doesn't hit for the stun. Eagles rally is out, Grasp of Death flies through.
Got him.
Aquarius tethered in nonetheless, backing away desperately. But the Camelot Kings will close gap.
You know what that looked like? That's like when you're walking your dog and like the leash gets caught in like a stop sign and they just start pulling on it.
They start pulling away.
Aquarius just like staring at where he's locked and he's like, I'm just trying to get away, man.
Going the wrong way, yeah. Sad for Aquarius. Happy for Variety that an assist gets going that way. You know, we were talking to Biggie before the set started. And I said, Biggie, I need you. You're my fantasy team coach. And he said, you know what's funny?
Don't do it to him, no.
Do it to Variety?
Yeah, you're going to do it to him?
Yeah.
All right.
Biggie was laughing. He was like, you know what's funny? Is all of the Camelot Kings are so high up on the fantasy charts, and then Variety is like tanked down at the bottom. And it's like, you know, it's purely a KDA conversation where Variety has been playing some really good Smite for his team.
0-4.
Right, but like in a game like this, Variety's 0-4. And he's my solo laner. And so where the Camelot Kings are feasting and fantasy points abound, my solo laner's 0-4. Thanks, Variety. A whole bunch. The Camelot Kings are seemingly on a... Are they going down? No, okay, so downhill's the wrong way to word it.
Okay.
All right, what's your take on this saying? Like if things like for the rest of the day get easier, are things all downhill from there because you're going downhill and it's easier to go downhill than it is uphill? Or is it all uphill from here, but it's harder to go uphill, but uphill sounds better than things going downhill?
I think it's
so
a question
for the Camelot
of,
Kings for the rest of this game, are they headed downhill or are they headed uphill?
Well, It's a question of perspective, I suppose, and how much you weigh, right? Like me personally, I prefer downhill, but I think if we're talking pure etymology, that's the study of like phrases and words, I think that it is all up from here. For
Right,
the
it's all
Camelot
up
Kings.
from here.
Yeah.
But are the
it's-
Camelot
it's a-
Kings headed
it's-
uphill, or are they headed
It's
downhill?
all up, but they're traveling down because it's easy.
Because they're on easy street. They're on a skateboard rolling downhill.
What's that painter that like it's like the
Picasso.
perspective? No, the perspective's like really hard. It's like the staircases. You can't
Oh.
tell which way they're
Yeah,
traveling.
yeah,
That's the Camelot Kings.
You don't know what direction they're going. I think they're in a pretty good spot right now, the Camelot Kings, regardless
Who
of
is
whether.
that? My college professors would be so mad.
You're talking about like
in
the
humanities.
like confusing perspective like staircases where it's
Oh,
all
it's Escher. It's an Escher painting.
right. Was it
Yeah.
MC Escher?
No, that's
What?
is that
Who is
Can't
it?
Stop This?
Yeah, what? That's MC Hammer.
Oh no.
I'm gonna throw up.
Oh no.
Oh my god!
He said,
And
"Look,
it's also can't touch this. I can't stop this.
Brom Young, talk the team fight."
I know, the team, thank God, it's going to bail you out of this one. It's Grasp of Death. It's great from Big Man Tings, and the rest of the Valkyries left running beneath the Tier 2 tower. Benny Q and the Descent into Madness again has delayed this fight. That's what you hope for out of this Cthulhu Ultimate. But delay is as good as it gets for the Valkyries right now. Tier 1 goes down. Tier 2 tower also falls. The gold lead continues to climb to over 7,000.
It does. The Camelot Kings, I think, have got just free reign of the map right now. They have walked into towers, through valleys of
It
broken
is
glass.
MC Escher, by the way, is the painter.
Like, he raps and paints?
No. It's Moritz Cornelius Escher.
Oh my
MC
God.
Escher.
That's awesome. That is so cool
And
for him.
MC Hammer is can't touch this.
Yeah, and it does the...
Yes.
Yeah, if the cam was on us, they'd see I did the dance. And I did it well.
Look, the Valhalla Valkyries, Smith, we're able to talk about MC Escher and we can't touch this because of the way that this game has gone. The Kings, again, rolling over the Valkyries as Captain Twig has put together back-to-back really solid games out of the jungle. Shiva Jungle has synergized very well with the way the Camelot Kings want to play. Pyromancer goes to the Kings. It's 23 minutes in. Fire Giant is the target, and I think the Kings are strong enough to force it.
They are, but the Camelot Kings, again, it's something I brought up earlier. Their confirmation is not so strong that they could just sit on the objective like they did with the ESET. If the Valhalla Valkyries show face even at this deficit, the Camelot Kings will be forced to reset it or accept the fact that it's a coin toss. And the Kings do not strike me as a team that is willing to make concessions. So we see it now. The Kings spreading themselves out across the map. Maybe Netroid goes to solo the Gold Fury. Can't really call it a solo if Captain Twig's nearby. So that will make it a 3 versus 5 around the Fire Giant. The Valhalla Valkyries, I believe, spotted out Captain Twig on that bottom side left ward. So they know it's a numbers advantage for them here.
The Kings may take those odds still in a 3 versus 5 with the way that this game has gone. One level lead in solo, a couple out of the jungle, one in mid. We're equal in support and ADC as well. Fury confirmed by the Kings, and this will be a 5 versus 5. As Captain Twig on his way over from the Fury actually has found an initiation. Kirby's got to jump away, and my God, Netrioid's got damage. And my God, Benny Q does not have health. Wowie uses the beads. There will be no drop kick connecting this time, but the Charybdis safe enough to get out. As Netrioid will use the Bifrost to disengage, and I'll take a deicide, please, at 24 minutes. And that might just end the game. The Camelot Kings have eyes to the mid lane, and they might have eyes to the Titan.
Yeah, the Camelot Kings came today with a superior draft and strategy.
They do
And the
their
Valhalla
best
Valkyries,
MC Escher
yeah,
impression.
dude,
So
they
you can't
could not
touch
be
this.
touched. Not even once. They went bananas this game. The Camelot Kings, look, it
That's
was
Natasha
clinical.
Bedingfield. Wait, no.
Who?
No,
That's the tennis player
What's happening?
from King Richard.
Wait, no. Does Avril Lavigne do bananas? B-A-N-A-N-A-S. That's the only reason I know how to.
That sounds like a Lizzo track to me. That's Gwen Stefani.
Gwen Stefani. We are all over the place. I swear to God, we're we participate in society. We know it. We know.
I've touched grass. On God, bro.
I
On
swear.
God.
Well, like, the reason we're talking about bananas is because of those show up well, do they?
Yeah, sure. I don't know.
Clearly those were bananas. Wait, what'd you want me to say? The Kings go bananas here in game number 2.
Now do the, like, peel yourself.
Oh, we didn't agree to that. Camelot Kings, back-to-back games, take down the Valhalla Valkyries to start off this 3-set day of the SPL. That's it for Miff and I on this cast. We'll take a break, and the desk will break down the set.
back to the SMITE Pro League. The Camelot Kings take it in 2 here up against the Valhalla Valkyries. And what I can really only describe as a Valkyrie-style composition, Valkyrie style of play. Unfortunately, it does not pan out for them here in game number 2. This one goes over handedly to the Camelot Kings, not just in game 1, but also here in game 2. I got Trelly sitting by to help me break down that game for what we can here. But, I mean, it feels like it's a lot of echoing on the problems that we talked about in the pregame on the desk.
Yeah, it just seems to be that the Kings came out swinging. The Valkyries pretty much realized that they were outclassed in that first one and decided to go for a different style of comp, maybe switch things up. But same sort of result. The Cthulhu mid just wasn't able to survive too much. It found some success early, but that's sort of where we thought it would find success, is in that early portion of the game. Late game, where everyone has the damage to one-shot you, and Cthulhu has no sort of tank stats, it's very hard to try and survive on such a large target. And of course, Captain Twig on this Shiva just looked very solid.
Yeah, and even though the Valkyries, being able to draft a more, common dual lane for themselves, something that works out a little bit better for them historically here, the rest of the map wasn't able to really kind of hold up the scuff here. I mean, at one point we looked up and Aquarius had 3 people surrounding it. Every chance that Aquarius had to move, he immediately got stopped by another CC. Okay, well, here's a drop kick. Okay, well, here's a knock-up. Here's a pull-in. It just felt like the control out of the Kings was too much for the Valkyries to handle.
Yeah, especially in that solo matchup. It's just it's difficult for variety to even exist in that lane against the Bologna, but once you get your squad to come help you, I mean, there's going to be no issues there, as we saw in Netroid. So safe on this Heimdall as well. That was some fancy bifrosting there just to make sure that his stat line goes undying, as Captain Twig as well. Both, I mean, 10-0 between the two of them. The whole team looked good, but you always got to love that no-death KDA at the end of the game.
Yeah, it's always got to feel good for these two players here on the Kings to keep that one up there. Anybody with them on the fantasy is going to be getting some nice points in this game specifically from them as well. But the Camelot Kings, they come out and we kind of talk about things like this. It was something that got brought up last year. You're going against a bottom seed team, one that's shown a little bit less success out here. It just kind of feels like a business as usual kind of a game out here. You're expected to come out, win these kinds of games, and the Kings really one of the first teams to handily win their setup here. I mean, with the Jade Dragon set that we saw a couple of weeks ago, that one was also a very easy win for them, if I'm just going to put it kind of like that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's no shame in the Valkyries taking this L, but after they beat the Leviathans yesterday, we thought maybe we would see a different style of play from them this time around. Not the choice, but the Camelot Kings, a team not rare to make. I mean, they're not often going to make those mistakes to give a team like this that out so they can find some sort of pressure.
Right, and with that victory here with the Kings, we do have a post-game interview with the coach of the Camelot Kings. I've got Biggie standing by for our post-game interview. First off, congrats on your win out here and being able to get yourselves up to, I believe now that 4-3 or 5-2?
Yeah,
now I'm already
4-3.
Yeah, 4-3 record out here for you guys. And how's it feel? You got your first phase down. How's the team kind of feeling here?
I think kind of a little bit disappointed for me. I think we should have finished top 4. Last week we had a bit of a shocker with the meta, and I think we just played terribly throughout the whole weekend, and it kind of cost us top 4 to play next week. So I'm pleased we closed it out today, but not happy, to be honest, like with how we performed overall. But we still have a long time to go, right? So.
Yeah, kind of coming out here, one of those kind of business as usual style games. Kind of expectations. Talking with Genetics for the pregame, he was saying this is kind of a set that we really expect to win out here. Is that kind of the same thought that you had, that kind of share that same thought?
Yeah, I think they're a team that we should be beating in 25 minutes 2-0, just because they don't have a lot of experience. And I mean, we also got to see them play yesterday, so we kind of know what they want to do to an extent. And I think it's nice to kind of end on a high and okay, yeah, we kind of found a bit of form again heading into when we play again in a few weeks at Masters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I got one last interview before we let you go here. Who would you say is the best ping pong player in the house out of the Kings?
Definitely me.
Oh, coach out here saying he's got the big one here. So, well, congrats on your win out here, Biggie. I'll let you get back to the team to celebrate. Congrats on the win.
Thanks.
So the coach saying he is the best ping pong player. If any of you at home have not had a chance to see the Kings when they go out in ping pong, between them, there's so many teams out here actually that have so many good ping pong players on there. Between the Kings, the Warriors, and even the Dragons, some of those players, there's some insane ping pong action going out there.
Yeah, whenever I walk in and see Biggie and Twig playing, I don't even understand how they turn the ball. I mean, it's just they can move the ball in midair. I was like, you've got chakra strings or something on there. I don't even understand how it works.
There's some wizards out there on the ping pong, and also wizards out here on the battleground as they're able to find a win here up against the Valkyries. Let's take a look at the schedule and the standings after our first game of the day completed here. Camelot Kings with a 2-0 over the Valkyries to start our day out. And then we got the Leviathans and the Dragons as our next set. That should be a big one for everybody to keep their eyes on. And the Tartarus Titans and the Oni Warriors after that one. It's something that I noticed kind of almost like as a joke. You know, every time that we have seen the Warriors end the week be that closing game, they found a win up against that team here. We'll see if that trend can follow suit here today against the Titans.
I'm very excited for this Leviathans and Jade Dragons matchup because the question is, are we witnessing the fall of the Leviathans where they're just not quite in tune to the meta just yet, trying to figure themselves out, or was that a one-off loss yesterday to the Valkyries and we're going to see them back to their prime strength? I mean, we're going to figure out in just a couple minutes here.
Yeah, that'll be our second set of the day, the one coming up very, very shortly for you guys. So Atlantis Leviathans and Jade Dragons. You take a look at the standings as well just to kind of see how things have panned out here with the win for the Camelot Kings. That'll put them comfortably in that 5th spot. The Valkyries, with their fall down there, they will drop down into the 8th seed. And with their loss to the Solar Scarabs earlier on during the split, that will solidify that the Scarabs at least do take that 7th seed for themselves. The Valkyries, unfortunately, even with their big win over the Leviathans, they're not able to adjust their standings any here. We'll be still sitting at least in that 8th seed here. But with this battle with the Dragons and the Leviathans could shake up the standings for that top 4. And then even with that Titans and the Oni Warriors could see some massive shakeups there too.
I mean, we're looking at a very interesting standings list here going into Masters. It's going to be quite a competitive match. I mean, right now, we've been talking about this a lot, where it's just like we don't know what teams are going to be able to take games off other teams. The Valkyries were a team that really couldn't find a win anywhere, but they were able to take on the Leviathans yesterday, so even those matchups in and of itself, there can always be something brought to the table. It's just good competitive SMITE coming up.
Yeah, we got 2 more big sets coming up for you guys today. Next one is going to be the Leviathans up against the Jade Dragons. Make sure you stick around because we'll be back right after this break.